final push for the candidates. This election, presidential election, is tomorrow, and it's the final day of campaigning. The candidates are obviously crisscrossing the country. So what do we know where we are today? There is, I'm just getting out, a big battleground state is Pennsylvania. 19 electoral college votes. Remember here, brothers and sisters, it's not like elections here in the UK where you vote for a candidate and whichever candidate gets the most votes wins. In this case, each state gets a proportion of electoral college votes. The electoral college is what elects a president. That's why if you look in 2016, Hillary Clinton won the popular vote. She got more votes, more people voted for her to be president than Donald Trump. But Donald Trump won. Why? Because he was able to win some of those battleground states. What we call marginal seats. These are marginal states where the gap between winning and losing is minute. It's very, very small. And the battleground cases, as you can see, you've got Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, you've got Arizona, Georgia, you've got Nevada, and you've also now got North Carolina. Again, that's a state which is solidly Republican, but in recent elections, I think in 2008 was the last time North Carolina went to a Democrat, and that was Barack Obama in that comfortable victory in 2008. Now, Pennsylvania is absolutely key. Pennsylvania is absolutely key for this election. Whoever wins Pennsylvania wins the presidency. So it's going to be an interesting night for you, and we're just waiting for our guest to join us. So, what impact the Muslim vote will have in this election? Muslims across America are being challenged. You may remember a program we did earlier this year about the Abandon Biden campaign. This was a grassroots campaign because of what was happening in Gaza for Muslims not to vote for the mainstream politicians, either Joe Biden, because he was still a candidate at that point, or Donald Trump, who both political parties are supporting Israel in this war that we've seen for over a year, which over 43,000 innocent people have been killed in Gaza, thousands also killed in Lebanon as well. So foreign policy, a real big issue. Now that Abandon Biden then became Abandon Harris. Why? Because Joe Biden decided to pull out of the race 104 days before the election and said he was stepping aside and supported his vice president, Kamala Harris, for president. And we saw that massive level of support for her, but obviously the polls have narrowed, and inshallah we'll reflect on that. But if you've got a thought about who do you think is going to win this election? I think if you watch the coverage, not just here in the UK, but around the world, you will see that people, commentators, pollsters, politicians, everybody's saying they just don't know. It is on the knife edge. Could go either way. And the key requirement in this election will be for each party to get out their vote. It's called get out their vote on election day, where they knock up doors. Very much like here, you'll see that in the general election we had in the UK, where people will knock your door because somehow you've told them in the past you voted for a political party. You might vote Democrats, you might vote Republicans, and you say, well, actually, you know what, I'm going to vote, that's how I voted in that particular election. So they'll knock your door and ask you, how do you intend to vote? And if you say you're going to vote for the Democrats, then on election day, they will knock you up. If you haven't voted already, they will knock you up to ask you to vote as well in this one. So Pennsylvania is going to be absolutely key. It's 19 electoral college votes. Remember, you need to get to 270. So as I said, each state gets a proportion based on its population. It's not equal like in the Senate where you have 2 senators per state. Here, you get a proportion of the votes that you will get. Okay, so Pennsylvania is going to be a key one. The other one that affects Muslims, which is going to be big, is Michigan. Detroit, just on the outskirts of Detroit, is the city of Dearborn. It's got the largest concentration of Arabs outside the Middle East. A huge Arab community. They've got a very strong presence in that city. The Dearborn mayor is Muslim, Muslims elected to local government, and they've been very active in campaigning against the Democrats and to an extent to the Republicans, and said don't vote for the mainstream parties. Why? Because they both support the genocide in Gaza, and that is something which is going to affect. And then this Abandon Harris campaign, which has started, started in Michigan and has strengthened across the country. And in Michigan, a key demographic of the people who will vote in this election will be Arab Americans, Muslim Americans, and to see how they will vote. And if Kamala Harris was to lose Michigan, even by small margin, then what would happen? Donald Trump most likely will become the next president of the United States, the 47th president, even though he's been the 45th. Obviously, the gap in between was the 46th president, which was Joe Biden. So lots of people are thinking about voting for an alternative candidate, a smaller candidate, a third-party candidate. In this case, it would be the Green Party candidate, Dr. Jill Stein, who's been very, very strong on Gaza and reacting to the heartbreaking war that we've seen. So that's what's expected to happen. Obviously, the polls will close. What we will see, and we know that both Donald Trump has been visiting a number of those battleground states, the states which are neck and neck, and obviously between them they will decide who will be the next president. Vice President Harris, in the last few moments, has been speaking to Pennsylvania voters, and she avoided mentioning her opponent. Remember, throughout this campaign, she's made a key talking point has been that she is standing against Donald Trump, and she generally tends not to mention, always mention his name, sorry, but today she's chosen not to mention him by name. She's been making small speeches, and she said her campaign for president and the country is about building a coalition and conversation, as it seems to leave a message of hope and positivity. And then that's what she said, Pennsylvania. So, as I said, Pennsylvania is a must-win for either candidate. It's got 19 votes. So remember, the total of Electoral College votes is 538. To win the Electoral College, you need 270. So whichever candidate gets to 270 first will obviously win. And so what is she doing? She's in Pennsylvania. She's going to be finishing off the day in Philadelphia, the city of Philadelphia, and Donald Trump will be in Grand Rapids in Michigan. Again, another key swing state we're just talking to you about. Donald Trump only this weekend was the first Republican candidate to go visit Dearborn and visit and speak Muslim voters and Arab voters in that. So that's going to be interesting. And then the other battleground state is going to be Wisconsin. That result, we are told, is not expected, the full result on Tuesday night. Again, you look at Wisconsin, this was always voting Democrats. It went to Donald Trump in 2016. It went back to the Democrats in 2020 when they voted for Joe Biden. And obviously, again, a battleground state. So far, they've received over 105,000 early ballots, and that include mail-in ballots and early voting. So it's down on 2020 by probably about 60,000 votes, but that's because it was the pandemic and a lot more people were voting through the post, and obviously they don't get counted until the day of the election. So that's going to be interesting. I'm going to talk to you about Arizona as well. I'm going to talk to you about Nevada, but before we do that, we're going to coming very close to a break. I'm just waiting. So our guest, Mo Nehad from Texas, will be joining us very, very shortly. He'll be with us just after the break, inshallah. We'll reflect with him about what the situation is like on the ground, and will there be some surprises in this election? States that we thought, like for example Iowa, we just had the latest poll yesterday, which shows a shock 3-point lead for Kamala Harris. Is that going to materialize? Is Iowa in play? The last time Iowa was in play was when Barack Obama won in 2008. Right, we'll take a break. When we come back, we'll talk to our special guest in the United States, Mo Nihad. He'll be joining us very, very shortly. Also, your questions, your comments on this US election 2024. Join us after this.
Sainsbury's? Oh, we made our money.
Hey Sainsbury's, explain it, will you?
Well, the same effort we put into our baking
Goes into matching prices.
Remarkable, we've actually come in under budget.
Get it now?
Already got it.
Sainsbury's, good food for all of us.
The thing about a stroke is, the first sign might not seem like much. Like not being able to raise your arm. Or struggling to smile.
I can help, said this is hippopotamus.
Or slurring when you speak. But any sign of a stroke is always an emergency. Face or arm or speech. At the first sign, it's time to call 999.
Our generation's risk of illnesses, like measles and whooping cough, is rising.
If we're not vaccinated,
We're not protected.
and could get seriously ill, risking lifelong disabilities.
Are your child's vaccines up to date?
Sainsbury's? Oh, we made our money.
Hey Sainsbury's, explain it, will you?
well, the same effort we put into our baking
Goes into matching prices.
Remarkable, we've actually come in under budget.
Get it now?
Already got it.
Sainsbury's, good food for all of us.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to Questions with me, your host Mohammed Shafiq, exclusively and live here on British Muslim TV. We're broadcasting satellite across social media platforms, wherever you are, whether you're on Twitter, which is now X, or Facebook. I refuse to call it X, just for the record. Still Twitter, my book. Anyway, we're on Facebook as well, many other platforms, wherever you are around the world. A very warm welcome. We're reflecting on the US presidential elections. The last day of campaign is today. Remember, they're about 5 hours behind us. So they're in the middle of the afternoon. The candidates are crisscrossing the country. And we're waiting for our guest to join us as well. We'll come to him in a very short while. But as you said, before the break, we looked at Pennsylvania. We also looked at, what did we look at? We looked at Arizona. No, we didn't. We looked at Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan. Michigan is really, really important. Why? Because that's where the movement to abandon Biden when he was a candidate, and then abandoned Harris when she took over as the Democratic Party nominee. That's where that movement was born. It grew out of Michigan, which is basically you don't vote for any of these candidates. You vote what's called uncommitted. So you say, I'm not going to vote for any of these candidates because of what's happening in Gaza. And for lots of Muslim and Arab voters, not just exclusively Muslim Arab, because obviously the issue of Palestine is not just a Muslim issue or an Arab issue, it's an issue of humanitarian crisis, and the genocide that we see in Gaza is one of the reasons why we find ourselves in this situation where we've seen so many people being killed. So that movement was born in Michigan. Key Muslim leaders who said we will not support the Democrats or the Republicans in this presidential election. So that's going to be really, really an important state to watch. If you are a political junkie like me and you're going to probably stay up and watch some of the coverage tomorrow night, keep an eye for Michigan. and keep an eye about the number of people who might vote for the third party candidate, Dr. Jill Stein. She's the Green Party candidate, obviously a very strong advocate for. Yeah. So the guest is waiting to join again. Okay. So what we'll try to do is, as we will behind the scenes, try to get our guest back on again. So what we'll try to do is, as I'm trying to fill you in on some of my reflections, if you like. So the Abandon Harris campaign are very, very clear. They have been very, very clear around what their plans are. I'm just trying to get their press release up. So they've been out and about, really working very, very hard to try to convince here, which is the campaigning in the Singh states. They say they've got huge support from the Ummah, and they can transform the story tomorrow, which in their eyes is that, in their eyes, it is basically that Kamala Harris should lose this presidential election because of the support of the US government for what is going on in Gaza. For her defense, she would argue, and as she has been doing today and yesterday in some of these battleground states, she was in Michigan yesterday. The person I was mentioning earlier on from Abandon Harris campaign is Hassan Abdul Salam. He's an expert in human rights, and he's been a guest on my show earlier on this year when we talked to him about this Abandon Biden campaign, which then turned into Abandon Harris campaign. So the vice president says that the death and destruction that is seen in Gaza is unbearable, and that should stop. There should be a ceasefire, that the hostages, remember there are over 100 Israeli hostages still held by Hamas and other factions, military factions in Gaza, that they have to release the hostages and that there should be a permanent ceasefire and the violence to end. And that's what she's saying, and she says she's campaigning on that. Donald Trump, on the other hand, says, yes, the war needs to end. The reports that he said to Benjamin Netanyahu when they met earlier on in the year, that he needs to wrap it up as quickly as possible. And there are reports through various news agencies who say that Donald Trump basically has said to the Israeli president and prime minister that this really needs to stop. And they need to wrap it up. There's a difference between what you say and what you mean by wrap it up. Does that mean, finish the war, or do you want to think about a negotiated settlement? And that's really, really important, because obviously that is what is happening. So we talked about Iowa. This is the poll that came out yesterday, which is really interesting, because Iowa is a strong, solid state that has voted for Donald Trump on a number of occasions. So 2016 and 2020. The gap is smaller than it has been. Remember, 2008, President Obama won that in his historic election victory in 2008. That poll, which is normally very accurate, it's got a good record in terms of accurate predicting what is going on. Iowa apparently likely are to lean so it's leaning Republican, but a chance that it could potentially go to the Democrats. Nevada, Arizona, it is tilt Democrats, which means it's heading towards the Democrats, but small amounts of votes could change the dynamics on the ground that we can see in Nevada and Arizona. Again, Nevada has obviously been a Democratic state, but the demographics of the state has changed. More Latino voters, but those Latino voters are supporting Donald Trump, which is going to be a very interesting point. So, how important is the independent vote for independence? So these are people who, like I would probably argue here in the UK, we have a lot more independent people who would move from voting for the Conservatives to voting for the Liberal Democrats, voting for the Labour Party. They don't necessarily stick by a party. In America, you have to register to vote in the primaries for each of the parties. So you register as a Democrat or you register as a Republican. And if you don't, you can be an independent. So, you know, there is huge numbers. As I said, 105,000 ballots have already been sent in. Many of them will be postal ballots, which is called mail-in ballots. So that will have an impact as well. And you know what's going to be interesting is in 2020, the independent vote in Arizona was 39% of the electorate. And Joe Biden won them over, beat Trump by the independents by 9%. So it's a key voting group and a key demographics. If, let's assume on Tuesday night, tomorrow night, if Donald Trump loses Arizona again, then it's a very likely chance that the story of the night, so those early states, North Carolina, Arizona, that we will see, they will tell a picture. They'll tell you a picture pretty early on what is happening because you can see the turnout, what is his vote comparison to what the vote was like in 2020 or what was like in 2016 when he first stood hours to go. And that's going to be key. So for example, very much like if you look at the general election here in the UK, what did we see? We saw that very first result, Sunderland South, I think it was, and you saw the Labour vote down, but the Tory vote massively down, the Reform vote up. And so that tells you Labour were on track to a landslide victory, and the vote counts that were coming in from actual results will tell you that the Labour Party was going to win. And very much similar in America. So when you get some of these results, you'll see in the bottom of the screen, it'll say precincts reporting. That means how many votes have been tabulated, recorded, and will obviously be counted. So your percentage at the bottom of the screen, you usually see the bottom of the screen, percentage of how many votes are in. And at some point, they will make a decision whether to call that state for one of the candidates or the others. So most of the states are not battleground states. They're not states that are neck and neck. So New York, for example, or California, these are states that will go to the Democrats because of the huge populations there. But actually there are other states, Kentucky, for example, you're challenging my geography here, but Kentucky, Alabama, Arkansas, these are hard, rock solid Republican states. So those states will come in and they will be for Donald Trump. If they're not, then it's a big problem for him for the night he will have. And then you've got in the middle, you've got these battleground states. So you've got three states. You've got Pennsylvania, you've got Pennsylvania, Michigan, and you've got Wisconsin. So they're in the sort of the west of the country, the battleground states. Keep an eye on that. And then towards the west, you have Nevada, Arizona, and Georgia. Arizona is key, which I told you about. Arizona and Georgia are the two states that's flipped from Republicans to Democrats, and that's going to be interesting. And it's an incredibly tight election. And so pollsters and the broadcasters tomorrow night, so the American news networks will be covering this election, but they will be very, very careful in declaring a winner of a particular state because of what happened in previous elections. So they'll be very, very careful and make sure that their decision is not able to be challenged in the way that it is. So let's have a look. So, you know, Donald Trump, as I said, is in Pennsylvania. Kamala Harris is also in Pennsylvania. It shows you how important this state is. These 19 votes are so vitally important. Whoever wins them will win the presidency, and that's why Donald Trump is going to close out his campaign after he's been in Pennsylvania. He's going to head to Grand Rapids in Michigan, where he will deliver his final speech. Remember, that's the place where he closed his campaign in 2020 there, and he also closed his campaign there in 2016. So it's kind of a tradition for Donald Trump to be speaking in that. President Donald Trump, former President Donald Trump, should I say, he has said in the last few moments, he says the Republicans have a massive lead of Democrats we should just swamp them. We should swamp them tomorrow. You have to stand up and tell Kamala that you've had enough. You're not going to take it anymore. You, the most incompetent vice president we ever had, and Joe Biden was the worst president in the history of our country. Kamala, you are fired. Oh, you're fired. You remember that? Yeah, from The Apprentice, but the American version. He was on that. Remember, he was before president. Right, and then he says, tomorrow will be the most important political event in the history of our country. And obviously we'll talk about what is happening there, but on some of the other states as well. And what are some Muslim leaders doing who have endorsed Donald Trump? Others have endorsed Kamala Harris. What impact will that have on the wider population? We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll continue this conversation. Reflections on the US election 2024.
Sainsbury's. Oh, we made of money.
Hey Sainsbury's, explain it, will you?
Well, the same effort we put into our baking
Goes into matching prices.
Remarkable. We've actually come in under budget.
Get it now?
Already got it.
Sainsbury's. Good food for all of us.
Our generation's risk of illnesses, like measles and whooping cough, is rising.
If we're not vaccinated,
We're not protected.
and could get seriously ill. Risking lifelong disabilities. Are your child's vaccines up to date?
I'm in. Now, you ready for a good day?
He was a scientific hypothesis. She was a clinical study. And the future breakthrough that could cure her is closer than ever. With our research, we can keep saving lives like hers. Donate now to turn science fiction into reality.
Sainsbury's. Oh, we made of money.
Hey Sainsbury's, explain it, will you?
well, the same effort we put into our baking
Goes into matching prices.
Remarkable. We've actually come in under budget.
Get it now?
Already got it.
Sainsbury's. Good food for all of us.
Assalamu alaikum, welcome back to Questions with me, put my teeth back in. Me, your host, Mohammed Shafiq. We're reflecting on the US election 2024. As you know, Americans will go to the polls tomorrow. A lot of them, over 80 million of them, have already voted. People who voted already. Apologies about my earpiece, which just keep disappearing. So whilst I say my earpiece, I just want to we're going to do some reflections about what is happening, who's going to win, when do we know a possibility of a result, and what impact does the war in Gaza and Lebanon have on each of the candidates. Remember, both parties are staunch supporters of Israel and Israel's right to exist, Israel's right to defend itself and respond. We know that over 1,300 Palestinians have been killed in the last month in northern Gaza. And the ground invasion and forced evacuations has continued in northern Gaza. And the Gamal Adwan hospital is again attacked by Israeli forces. As the siege of northern Gaza, there's an issue about famine, the lack of aid getting through. Winter is now kicking in. I tell you, because I've been to Gaza, and it is as beautiful as it was when I went. You could feel the cold. I went in I think it was March. You could still feel the cold in the evening. And then you imagine that you're in October or you're in November and winter's about to kick in. It is very, very cold, and that's going to be a big issue. So both parties will be an issue. So, for example, you look at the Muslim commentator Bilal Irfan, he says he's going to vote against genocide. He says, my work in Palestine and with Palestinians has profoundly affected me and how I view domestic American politics. And if there's one main takeaway from my work and resubmission to Palestine this summer, it is that the Israeli crimes reported are only a small fraction of what actually occurred. He says on November the 5th, this is Bilal Irfan, the political commentator, he says, on November the 5th, I will vote against genocide, and I will do so not only with the plight of the Palestinian people in mind, but also with the fate of my fellow Americans as well. That will be up there. And we are seeing both of the candidates here. So Kamala Harris, remember, is the vice president. She was picked by Joe Biden to be the vice president candidate. Obviously, when he had that horrendous debate, did you see it? Where he struggled and he looked like he was, 80 plus years old. And then there was a lot of pressure within the political party for him to step aside. He eventually did that. And Kamala Harris, as his vice president, he endorsed her, as did the party grandees. And she ended up becoming the candidate in this election, and she was up against Donald Trump, the former president. Remember, he won that historic victory in 2016, and he says it's about making America great again. Vice President Kamala Harris, again, as I said, is speaking in Pennsylvania. She's spending the whole day in this state. It shows you how important it is. 19 electoral college votes. Whoever wins Pennsylvania wins the presidency. Let's be clear about that. And they both know that. That's why Donald Trump is in Pennsylvania. It's why Kamala Harris has chosen to spend the whole day there, and she's going to finish her campaign in there. She says the race is not over yet. We've got a lot of work to do. We have to finish strong. She said, we will win, we will win, we will win. And one of the reasons we will win is because I do believe when you know what you stand for, you know what to fight for. I mean, I don't know even if that makes sense. Meanwhile, Donald Trump, who's also in Pennsylvania, has just finished his rally, and he said, this is our last time forever. Now, this is what he's saying. This is the last time there's going to be a Democratic election in America. That's what some commentators have said. But his campaign has said what he means here is, and he said this himself, that whatever the result, it's probably the last time he's going to fight this campaign. If he was to win, he would serve 4 years in the White House, and then he cannot stand again. There's a bar on presidents standing for more than 2 terms. And he says this, and I want to quote it because it's quite a personal statement from the former president. He says, this is our last time forever. We started 9 years ago as a family unit, he said, before being joined on his stage by his 2 sons, Donald Jr. and Eric, and his daughter Tiffany. This has been the honor of a lifetime, his son said. And that's going to be really, really interesting to see, is that a farewell song of his campaign, and is he going to win? And if he doesn't win, what's going to be the consequences? Remember, here on British Muslim TV, do you remember it? January the 6th? Yes, I remember it because I was here in the studio on this channel. We were broadcasting live when we saw those horrific scenes of the storming of the Capitol and the violence that we saw on that day. We were on air, if you remember, for that 90 minutes. So it'll be interesting to see what is going to be the response. Is there going to be more violence? God forbid if there is. But if there is, what's that going to be? And then the demographics of the states are changing. So you remember the blue wall? It's a bit different to the UK. So here in the UK, we have Labour Party are red, the Conservative Party are blue. In America, it's the other way around. The blues are the Democrats, the reds are the Republicans. And we call what's called the blue wall. These are states that have always voted Democrat. So they've been Democratic strongholds for many, many years until 2016, where Donald Trump beat Hillary Clinton. And he beat her by these 3 states. He won Pennsylvania, he won Michigan, and he won Wisconsin. And again, this time round, they will be part of those 7 battleground states. Whoever win in those 7 battleground states. Remember, the polls are neck and neck. Okay, either Kamala Harris is up by 2 or 3 points, or Donald Trump is up by 1 or 2 or 3 points. So it's neck and neck. So if you cancel each that out, it is 50-50. It's a toss-up. But they will, the 7 states that we've been talking about on the program, will form. So you've got Pennsylvania, you've got Michigan, Wisconsin, you've got Georgia, Arizona, Nevada, North Carolina, and I missed one. Anyway, 01924-231-083 if you want to tell me what they are. So we've got Michigan, Wisconsin, Arizona, Nevada, North Carolina. You've got, my mind's gone blank. Anyway, I'll keep going through, yeah? And then you've got, obviously, interesting, it shows you the importance that Pennsylvania is, that they're both there. They're both campaigning in that state. Vice President Harris is going to finish her campaign there. Donald Trump is going to head to Michigan. Again, remember, I don't know if you've seen it, check it out. He went to Dearborn, where he met with a number of Muslim leaders, a number of Muslim imams, a minority of them endorsed Donald Trump for president, as have a number of Muslim leaders who have endorsed Kamala Harris. But there are that group in the middle, abandoned Harris, who say that they will not be supporting they won't be supporting this announcement. Excuse me. So it's interesting. In Michigan, the Abandon Harris campaign, again, this is a grassroots campaign. It's not just Muslim, but it's predominantly run by Muslims, activists, who regularly send me stuff. But they're offering free round-trip rides to polls from now until election day at no cost. So this is Wayne, Macomb, and Oakland counties. So you ring this number, you give them a code, and they send a taxi driver to come and pick you up and drop you off at home so that you can carry out your vote. That's going to be really interesting to see how that it's going to develop the story. Michigan, as I said. Now, in Michigan, Donald Trump's supporters are saying that they think they're extremely confident that he's not only just going to win Michigan, he's going to win Pennsylvania as well, and he's going to win the White House. And he says, if you look at the numbers, if you look at the rallies, it's crazy the support that Trump has. This is somebody speaking to the AFP Newswire. This is in Grand Rapids. This is the location, as I said earlier on, where Donald Trump is going to be holding his final rally tonight. And he is going to expect to speak there with his final message to voters as he wraps up this campaign. His supporters are saying if it goes the other way, I think we're going to be awfully suspicious. This is Trump supporter, 41-year-old Jacob Smith, who's been speaking to the AFP Newswire, said it would be very hard to accept a Harris victory. And obviously, remember, in the run-up to the election, but after the election was called for Joe Biden, Donald Trump refused to accept that, and even till today has denied and falsely claimed that the 2020 election he lost was marred by widespread fraud. And in his campaign, he's also falsely accused the Democrats of trying to rig the vote. What is interesting is that he did take his case to various courts and he lost every single of those cases. And as we know, Joe Biden was inaugurated as president in January 2021. Key big issue in some of these battleground states is the right for abortion. Obviously, that's going to be a big talking point amongst people. It'll be interesting to see what happens there. It's going to be interesting. Donald Trump is described tomorrow as Liberation Day. He says he's going to. He says, on day one of being president again, he's going to launch the largest deportation program in American history. We have to get them out. Of the 1,399 that are murderers, many of them have committed 2 murders. He said, it's not clear who, again, this is according to AFP, he's referring to, but says some migrants will be imprisoned while others would be deported. For the most part, we just want to get the hell out of our country. Without looking about the huge problem of murder that exists within America. Yeah, the mass shootings that you see on a daily basis, kids being killed by lunatics in America. So if you're a migrant or if you're a newly arrived resident, or even if you've been in that country for many, many years, he wants to deport them. But meanwhile, what is he going to do with the white murderers or the American murderers who've been there? What happens to them? What are the consequences? It's all the double-2 system. So interestingly, as I said, it is looking tight. If you look at these states and there's final polls that people are putting out, Donald Trump has said he's been waiting 4 years for this moment. Obviously, he lost the last election, denied that he had lost the election, and this is his final chance. He said this is his final chance, and he's waiting to see what will happen. Yeah, and so we're going to see what happens. We'll talk a bit about Texas, Florida, as well as Massachusetts. I think, again, that's a safe Democrat state, guaranteed. So when these results come out, because it's such a safe state, they will always come out. The broadcasters, the news networks will say, we call Massachusetts for the Democrats or Kentucky for the Republicans, because just of the demographics. It's the 7 in the middle where it's neck and neck, and whoever gets there will be interested to see as well. Right, in the last the last segment of the program, what we're going to do, we're going to talk about what to expect from the election night here on British Muslim TV. Join us on the other side of these short messages. Assalamu alaikum.
Sainsbury's? Oh, we made of money.
Hey Sainsbury's, explain it, will you?
Well, the same effort we put into our baking
Goes into matching prices.
Remarkable. We've actually come in under budget.
Get it now?
Already got it.
Sainsbury's. Good food for all of us.
Our generation's risk of illnesses, like measles and whooping cough, is rising.
If we're not vaccinated,
We're not protected.
and could get seriously ill, risking lifelong disabilities. Are your child's vaccines up to date?
I'm in. Now, you ready for a good day?
He was a scientific hypothesis. She was a clinical study. And the future breakthrough that could cure her is closer than ever. With our research, we can keep saving lives like hers. Donate now to turn science fiction into reality.
Sainsbury's? Oh, we made of money.
Hey Sainsbury's, explain it, will you?
well. The same effort we put into our baking
Goes into matching prices.
Remarkable. We've actually come in under budget.
Get it now?
Already got it.
Sainsbury's. Good food for all of us.
Assalamu alaikum, welcome back to Questions with me, Mohammed Shafiq. We're reflecting on the US election. Now, one of the most prominent Republican voices for American Muslims is somebody called Mohammed. He's from Texas, he stood in elections, he's a senior serving police officer, very active in the Republican Party. He's joining us on the phone. Mohammed, assalamu alaikum, welcome to British Muslim TV.
Say the last part. Say the last part one more time, please.
I'm saying welcome to the program, sir.
Thank you, Brother Mohammed. Thank you.
I hope that we can have you back next week and we can have a proper discussion around the election results. But first of all, just tell me, what was your experience like? Because you stood for election in a primary for a sheriff. How was that experience for you?
All right, so let me be very clear. Irrespective of whether you run as a Republican or a Democrat, and if you're a Muslim, you have to align yourself with the party agenda. And unfortunately, in the United States, if you're a Muslim, the way you're supposed to be a Muslim, you cannot align yourself with either party 100%, whether it's the Democrat Party or the Republican Party. Because as a Muslims, our values do not align 100% with either one of the parties. However, with that said, there's only one party that most of our values and principles align, and that's the Republican Party. But that's also not 100%. It's only about 60 to 70%. Yeah. So I ran in the Republican primaries that happened in March 2024 for a sheriff's office in Fort Bend County. I did not make the primaries. And here I am now. It's the general time, and I'm trying to help any other candidate that I can to win in the general.
Can I ask you? I mean, you're obviously right about you don't agree with every political party, whichever party that you stand with. But in Texas, there are rumors that Donald Trump and the gap between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris is is narrowing. How do you see it on the ground? Do you think Donald Trump will win Texas and win big?
So every single metropolitan city in Texas, such as Houston, Austin, San Antonio, Dallas, Corpus Christi, all of those cities are going to make Kamala Harris win. But all the other towns that are not part of the metropolitan. So there are 254 counties in Texas. And out of the 254 counties, there are only about 54 counties that are actually Democrat counties. The remaining 200 counties are all Republican counties. So at a state level and in those other 200 counties, Donald J. Trump is going to win. But in the other 54 counties, Donald J. Trump is not going to win.
Yeah. And what about Senator Rick Scott? He's up for re-election. Do you think he'll win?
One more time, sir.
Rick Scott, the senator.
I didn't hear the senator's name.
Your senator, Mr. Scott. Senator Scott. Do you think he'll win?
No, there are only two senators for the state of Texas. One is Senator John Cornyn, and the other one is Ted Cruz.
Oh, sorry. I'm getting confused between Florida and Texas. Ted Cruz. It says that he might lose. Do you think Ted Cruz is going to win?
Ted Cruz is going to win, unfortunately. I mean, as a Republican, I did not vote for him.
Yeah, you wouldn't vote for him, or you did vote for him?
Say that one more time, sir.
Did you vote for Ted Cruz?
Why didn't I vote for him?
Yeah.
Well, the reason why I didn't vote for him is before I'm an American, I'm a Muslim. And if there's any political leader that does not actually consider the lives of Muslims, whether they're in America or outside of America, I do not support that candidate, even if that candidate is Republican, or for that matter, even if that candidate is a Republican Muslim.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that, but have you voted for Donald Trump?
Did I vote for Donald Trump?
Yeah.
Yes, I voted for Donald Trump. Yes.
So the candidate or the president that introduced the Muslim ban, the candidate that has demonized Islam and Muslims around the world, you voted for him but didn't vote for Ted Cruz.
So I don't know if those statements that are being shown in the media, if they're actually true statements, but here's what I go by, okay? Donald J. Trump was the president of the United States for 4 years. For the 4 years that he had office, there were less Muslims that were killed worldwide. And for that matter, even non-Muslims. I mean, there were fewer wars in the Middle East. There were fewer conflicts in Afghanistan. There were fewer conflicts in Somalia. There were fewer conflicts, in Eastern Europe or in Eurasia. So I'm actually going by what the president has already said, versus whatever bites they're putting out on social media, because there's a lot of, artificial intelligence that's going on that could make, whatever videos you want to make and so forth.
But he did introduce the Muslim ban. He did introduce the Muslim ban.
Yeah, so I go by what he has already done until he actually held office until 2020 December,
Yeah. Okay, so how do you see this election night playing out? Tomorrow night, obviously people voting tomorrow, but how does the night develop, and what do you think are the chances for Donald Trump to win?
So Kamala Harris is not going to win, and I'll tell you why she's not going to win, okay? America is not ready for a female president. America wasn't ready for a female president back in 2016.
Yeah.
You know, when Hillary Clinton ran. And unfortunately, I have to make this statement. America is not ready for a female president who is not white. Okay? So unfortunately, Kamala Harris will not win. And Kamala Harris is the only candidate who did not go through a primary. And Democrats should realize that is actually a failure on part of the party and actually betraying the people who vote Democrat.
Yeah, because I mean, in a sense, that's on Joe Biden, isn't it? The fact that he left it so late to pull out. There wasn't time for a primary. There wasn't a time for a rerun of those party elections. So you think Donald Trump's going to win Texas? He's going to win this presidential election. He's going to be the 47th president.
Yes, inshallah, he will.
Okay, and what will he do different from what he did from 2016 to 2020? How will he be different this time around? Or will it be more of the same?
Sorry, say that one more time about 2016 and 2020?
How will President Trump be different if he wins tomorrow?
Well, what will happen different, in my opinion, is first of all, the borders are going to be much secure. I mean, right now we have people coming through the border. We have no idea who they are. And a lot of people say that, well, you're an immigrant too. You came through the border too. Yes, but I wasn't an illegal immigrant who came through the border and who disappeared. I was a legal immigrant who came through the border and became eventually a permanent resident and became a U.S. citizen. So it's not the same. You know, when people compare illegal immigration that's happening with people who are coming to this country legally, I think that's a slap in the face of the people who come to this country legally, you know?
My final question, and I really would love to get you back next week properly, and we can reflect on your prediction, which you think Donald Trump is going to win this election. But my final, what would you say to American Muslims who say, I can't vote for either Trump or Harris because they're supporting Israel and what Israel's doing in Gaza and in Lebanon?
I believe, Brother Mohammed, your mic is too close, so I think your voice is getting a little too muffled, so I can hear you speak, but I cannot understand really what you're speaking.
What would you say to American voters who don't want to vote for either of the parties because of what's happening in Gaza?
So what is happening in Gaza, neither party actually are with people of Gaza. Neither of the party is with the people of Palestine. Now, there might be a lot of candidates who are running as Democrats who are with Palestine. But again, that's just the reason to win votes. As simple as that. I mean, we know Democrats who have stood with Palestine for decades, and nothing has happened. But we actually get impressed by that, and we keep voting Democrat.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah. I mean. Now, if you remove Gaza, Palestine, you know, out of the equation just for a minute, and then you think about voting Democrat and getting Democrat elected officials, whether in local government, state government, federal government, is actually a way to make our faith, our Islamic faith, being a Muslim, to be wiped out. And this goes to all the Christians. Look at Christianity in America right now. It's getting wiped out.
Yeah.
Look at other religions. It's getting wiped out. And if we as Muslims keep voting Democrat, forget, you know, outside we're getting beaten up, whether it's in the Middle East or wherever, but we're going to start getting beaten up in here. We are only going to be, by name, Muslims.
Mordehad, I absolutely loved having you on. I wish we had more time. I hope you can join us next week and we can reflect on your predictions and see if we should give you a bouquet of flowers to celebrate the fact that Donald Trump has won, or to give you a box of tissues so you can mourn the fact that your candidate didn't win. Hopefully we'll see you next week.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much. Moni Hard there, a Republican former candidate in elections there in Texas, joining us from Texas, reflecting on this election campaign. One thing is really true is that it is neck and neck, and it depends on how many people vote and how they vote and if they come out and vote, and it's going to be really, really tight. And if you're a political junkie, you can stay up all night. I recommend you probably go sleep, just because we don't know what's going to happen. But we'll be back next week. We'll have a Democrat and we'll have a Republican. We'll reflect on the results and we'll reflect on the future of American democracy and what now for the future for the next 4 years. From me, Mohammed Shafiq, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We'll see you very, very soon.
Sainsbury's. Oh, he made her money.